is Indian country today.
Esquili, yes, and thank you for joining us. I'm Patty Talohungva. Here are the headlines for Thursday, August 6th, 2020. Today is the 75th anniversary of the atomic bombing of Hiroshima. But before the U.S. dropped that bomb, they tested the atomic bomb on a site close to the Mescalero Apache Reservation in southern New Mexico. On July 16, 1945, the atomic bomb test took place on the Army's White Sands Missile Range. The bomb was equivalent to 21 kilotons of TNT. At the time, an estimated 19,000 people lived within a 50-mile radius, which included both Apaches and Navajos. When Hiroshima was bombed less than a month later, more than 140,000 people were killed, and the city was destroyed. 3 days later, Nagasaki would be bombed, killing another 70,000 people. By August 15, 1945, Japan surrendered, ending World War II. Today, survivors of the bombing in Hiroshima continue to push for nuclear disarmament. In New Mexico, the National Cancer Institute is now studying the effects of radiation, which it has had on people who lived there during the testing. A Florida tribe is suing the United States over the CARES Act relief funds. The Miccosukee tribe in South Florida says the Department of Treasury incorrectly determined its population was 0. Still, the tribe did receive some funds. Now they want the full amount owed them based on their population size, which would amount to about $2 million. Across the country, 20 other tribes were also listed as having a population of 0. Some Oklahoma tribes have temporarily banned smoking in casinos due to COVID-19 guidelines requiring face coverings. On Wednesday, the Comanche and Cherokee Nations were praised for the ban by the American Lung Association in Oklahoma. The association says the policy will protect the health of workers and customers from dangerous secondhand smoke. It's calling for the permanent adoption of the policy. A spokesperson for the casino says the ban will be in place as long as face coverings are required. Reactions to the policy have been mixed, and there's potential for a permanent ban. Oklahoma has more than 30 tribes with casino operations, and many have made changes to their smoking policies. A number of casinos have designated smoking areas for now. Other tribally owned casinos across the country are also going smoke-free as they reopen during this pandemic. A Winnebago man is being honored for his lifetime work of advocating for Native people. Frank Lemire founded Hope Street. It's a sober living house in Sioux City, Iowa. The home was opened in response to an increased need for transitional sober living housing. It serves homeless people and those suffering from addiction. This week, it was renamed Frank Lemire's Hope Street of Siouxland. Lemire died in June of 2019, and just days later, Hope Street opened. Lemire was on the forefront of almost every major issue, from police brutality to protecting Native children and those suffering from addiction. And now for an update on COVID-19 in Indian country, let's go to Jordan Bennett-Begay. Jordan?
Yate Patty, Yate Shikisto Shidine. In Idaho, 14 new cases showed up on the Fort Hall Reservation, home to the Shoshone-Bannock tribes. This gives the tribe a total of 84 cases and 1 death since the pandemic has started. Tribal officials say elders are being directly contacted by those who have a positive case in their home. The tribe stresses to the younger generation to continue the preventative measures, such as wearing a face mask outside the home and hand washing. The Cherokee Nation in Oklahoma announced 21 new cases, giving the tribe a total of 877 cases. For the Mississippi Band of Choctaw Indians in Mississippi, the tribe has seen 10 more cases. This brings the tribe's total to 1,044 cases and 76 deaths. And as for the Navajo Nation, the tribe continues to see positive cases trickling in. The tribe reported 39 new cases and 4 additional deaths. Navajo Nation President Jonathan Nez said in discussions with health experts about data collected by contact tracers, it's, quote, apparent that many of the new cases we are seeing on the Navajo Nation can be attributed to our citizens traveling to cities such as Phoenix and Albuquerque and attending family gatherings or eating out in restaurants, and then returning home with the virus and spreading it to others. He encourages people to social distance and to stay home on the weekends and to wear face masks in public. And here's a look at the rest of the numbers. There are 15,757 positive cases and 656 deaths in the Indian health system. Again, that is a total of 15,757 positive cases and 656 deaths as of August 6th. Patty?
Thank you, Jordan, and we'll be right back.
This is Indian Country Today.
In this civil unrest environment, Native issues are coming to the forefront, and we are hearing about Mount Rushmore and updates on the Dakota Access Pipeline. Yet not much has been heard and taken notice of the Apache's effort to protect two sacred sites. And due to the pandemic, this year, the 29th annual Mount Graham Sacred Run didn't have the hundreds of runners it normally has. Instead, only two people ran this 130-mile course, a grandfather and his granddaughter. Wendsler Nosie Sr. joins us today to talk about the run and why he's been committed to this effort for so many years. Welcome, Wendsler.
Thank you. It's good to be with you guys.
Also joining us is his granddaughter, Baase Pike. She completed the 4-day run with her grandfather. Welcome, Baase.
Hi, thank you.
Wendsler, there are two issues that you're continuing to raise awareness about. Tell us first about the Mount Graham issue that you've been committed to for pretty much decades now.
Well, you know, again, it goes back to these sacred and holy places, and it's our deities who reside in these areas that we're speaking of. And this is where a lot of our holy songs, language, and the prayer has come from. And coming into the present, you know, it being exempt from the federal government from all environmental laws, which really took away everything that we are to argue the point. And prior to that, you know, we did take it to court with the University of Arizona. We won at the federal court in Tucson. They appealed it, Ninth Circuit Court in San Francisco. We also won that 3-2. But little did we know that they were in DC lobbying for an exemption, and were given the exemption from all the federal laws. So that's when we began to witness the unfair act that was taking place in DC on these lands that are very important to all of us. And so what was really important was the next generation, was that they were, because we're in a reservation considered, you know, a prison prior, is that the assimilation to forget who we are was good. It was in its process. But one of the most important things our elders talked about was to go back to the mountain right. And one of the things my mother really implemented is that there are corridors to take you to a holy place. You just can't go there. And so that's what began the sacred run, was to begin to initiate our children into the process of going through corridors to get to a holy place. And that started over 29 years ago to really fight what was evil and undermining and hidden, because we knew that we couldn't, you know, apply any court cases against the government because they just wiped it clean. And that's what is so crazy about this. And so it started 29 years ago.
29 years ago for Mount Graham. And again, you know, when you're looking at these issues, for the Apache people, it's an issue of a sacred site. And so it falls under freedom of religion. Do you believe that American Indians have true freedom of religion in this country?
No, I don't, from our experience with Mount Graham to Oak Flats, because everything that was recorded from the military, from the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and everybody else that our tribal leaders met 100 years ago means nothing today. So we really have to look at that and really make the decisions of how we're going to protect the future. And so for me personally, you know, it's always undermining the Indian people, especially like we were told the last battles would be our religion, and we have to stand up for the religion. And, you know, we were told that, and we're in that day today. And if we don't protect that, then we're going to lose these very special places in North America.
All right. Baase, the other issue is the mining at Oak Flats. And when that first came to the forefront, a lot of younger people really stepped up and started raising that awareness. Can you tell us a little bit about what's happening now with Oak Flats?
Um, what's happening more on Oak Flat? Well, one is that my grandpa's there now, and recently, due to COVID, they closed down all like National Park Service, but they had to give my grandpa an exemption, which is awesome because the government recognized a Native person living at their holy place. So my grandpa was given an exemption from uh, for camping at Oak Flat while everyone else had to pack their stuff and move. And also, the mining's still going on, but we're still trying to fight that.
All right, and you bring up a point very clearly that that your grandfather has moved out there to the site and is now living there. So when you two started this run this year in July, you ran 130 miles in 4 days. Tell us about that journey and what you learned along the way, just being the two of you out there.
Well, the journey. Well, I learned a lot actually with being with my grandpa there. Even if it came just from being careful of the roads to more about our history and just thinking about how our people and our ancestors from a long time ago took these footsteps we did when they traveled back from Oak Flat to Mount Graham. I learned more about my religion, of who I am, and more about these dirty fights and these dirty politics and what these corporations are trying to do and trying to take our land for just minerals. And yeah, I learned a lot.
And that must have been quite a journey. I mean, when you think about any kind of ultra run and then you add the element of spirituality on top of that, it's quite an undertaking. And in the past, you guys have had hundreds of runners out there joining you. And again, this year, because of the pandemic, that wasn't possible. Wendsler, you've taken your message to people around the globe. Tell us a little bit about where you've been and how you've had a response to your message.
Well, starting with the European world, I think they're the first to know the toxic that comes from all these corporations and what they have experienced. So in so many ways, you're really talking to those who experience what we're going through as a country here. And I remember before I went overseas, my mother telling me that these people that are here came from there. So those people over there are the oldest ones. So when you get there, tell them to tell these kids to behave. So that was really cute, when they're, when you look at the old country and you look at what they have experienced. But it's really not like, one of the things we learn, it's not really what we learn about them. It's really more advanced in the way colonization is, and then the devastation that comes from that. And then here in America was, one of the things I say was it was an Apache fight here. Then it moved to the 22 tribes of Arizona. Then it moved to a state fight. Then it moved to the country's fight. And I've learned that by not only seeing our Native brothers and sisters, but everybody in this country. And so, to make it short and summarize it, I feel bad for all the different people because cities and towns are no different than reservations. They're just blinded from this colonization, this corporate way of life that they've been in it for hundreds of years, longer than we have. So I think the advantage that we have as Indian people is that we see that and we can identify that. And that's not what we want because it really breaks up the community. It breaks up the family values. You don't have that anymore because corporations force you to live that lifestyle. And so, now when I'm in DC speaking, I realize that I'm not just speaking for our children, I'm speaking for all children because of this colonization. And sometimes, in talking to a lot of non-Indians, I find that they're more than ready to decolonize. Like when we say, us Indian people, we say we got to decolonize, they're more than ready because they lived it longer than we have. And they just need a good leader. They need a good leader to help them lead them out of that. And so in my final, my final overlook of the whole thing, when I go to Oak Flats, Mount Graham, I'm in this area is praying, is now my whole prayers is for everybody, because it leads back to what my mother told me. She says, they always refer back to the Bible, of all these stories in the Bible of incidents that took place. She said, they're never going to come to the point that maybe a light shine to bring these people over here because of all the prosecutions that was happening in the other side of the world. So now they came here, but what they haven't accepted was that, we're supposed to be a part of the process to make this world better, and from what is evil is not giving us that opportunity, but we have to work for it, because once it comes together, then the cure will happen, the healing will happen, and then around the world. So those are the principles that I put within what I do, of the guiding road that we should be on. So, but that's what I've learned, and just summarizing it, it really was an eye-opener.
And how much support do you have from the tribal government, from the San Carlos Apache people?
Well, we have, just recently they passed a resolution again, reinforcing their position, about being an opponent to it, and also working on the environmental issues, along the side of the religious issues, but how it's going to impact the state of Arizona. But again, it goes back to media. We don't have the outlets carrying these stories. We don't have, where it should be, because it is going to really identify all the leadership of their negligence of this issue in Arizona. But the tribe has made every effort. Of course, you're going to have Native people who sell out. It's normal practice and normal fact. And we did have that earlier with Resolution Copper when they were trying to divide the tribe. And they were pouring in money just like they do anywhere else. And then we're a suppressed reservation. So of course, some of these people are going to take it, But now today, they're not even working with them. They're back with the tribe. It's kind of just crazy. But, I've learned to live with it. I learned to accept it. And I've learned that you can overcome that just like it was in the past. And I just feel for these people. But, those are the choices they have to make. I don't hate them because they're going to have to deal with that, later in life. But it's just a way of life. It just makes the road more difficult. But it's okay, because as long as you have the faith and belief.
So again, bringing attention to Mount Graham, the telescopes on Mount Graham, and then Oak Flats and the mining that's continuing to take place there, two sites that are sacred to the Apache people, the San Carlos Apache people in particular. In this era, we're using a lot of social media, and this younger generation, your granddaughter, they just cling to that. They understand it and they work with it. So quickly tell us how social media has helped bring your message to a greater audience.
I mean, you're right. We really caught up with the game. In other words, when they're doing all this dirty work, meaning Congress, meaning Resolution Copper, the telescope projects, they always seem to be 2 months ahead of us. But when the social media began, word began to get out quicker and faster. And I mean, you could use it for the right reason, but you can also use it for the wrong reason. But for the right reason, it's been effective to get out to, across the board to Indian country, because even though we may be doing good in these court cases, we can't rest, because we got to remember that they can exempt at any time. They can do exemptions. And one of the documentaries they had was that all they have to do is apply to the National Defense Bill, because that's a must-pass bill. So anything they put in that bill will pass. And that's what they did in these two issues, because there was no arguments, And
yes.
it even put pressure on Obama. And so when John McCain put it in the bill, in the National Defense Bill, Obama couldn't do nothing except to sign it. And then it made the fight even more deeper in the hole. But, social media, I mean, to the younger generation, is to teach them these things that are occurring. And this is what, my granddaughter, I spent so much time talking with her about not just the spirituality, but how the process works. And then also Indian country, what we need to do, we need to be always riding our horse. We can't be off it, because it's just the way the system is, But as long as somebody, like we're doing security, we're always, checking the I's, crossing the T's, that we're monitoring the whole issues. And I hope that one day we really actually come together and speak really with one voice, because that's where it's at today. Even though we may be different bands of Indian people, we really need to come together and really keep an eye on what's going on in Congress.
All right. Well, Wendsler Nosie Sr., thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
And Baase Pike, thank you so much for joining us as well.
Thank you.
And we'll be right back.
This is Indian Country Today.
Welcome back. Megan Sullivan joins us now, and she's an intern with Indian Country Today. She's based in Anchorage, Alaska, and she's following the story on the Pebble Beach mine in Bristol Bay. Megan, welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So what is the latest on the mining there?
Yes, so essentially Pebble Mine has been a proposed mine project located in Bristol Bay. It has been proposed since the 1980s, and it's been kind of an ongoing back and forth for over 30 years trying to decide if they're actually going to build this mine. And just last week, they released the final environmental impact statement, which basically outlines the impact that the mine would have on the surrounding area. So there's been a lot of buzz about that. People are worried that that's going to lead to the production of the mine, although there still are a few steps in the permitting process before it could actually be built.
And the what caught a lot of people's attention the other day was that Donald Trump Jr. actually tweeted out his support to not have a mine there because he has enjoyed the fishing in that area and talked about the beauty of the land.
Yeah, that was a very surprising turn of events. Basically, what's at the heart of this Pebble Mine debate is that Bristol Bay area is such a beautiful and abundant fishing area. And so people have always been worried that the mine is going to kind of ruin that. And so when Donald Trump Jr. Kind of tweeted that he was totally on board with supporting the fishing rather than the mine, that really surprised a lot of people. It made a lot of people happy, and it was interesting just because with this final environmental impact statement, people have kind of interpreted it as the Trump administration being supportive of the mine, whereas it seems like that might not be 100% the case, thanks to this new tweet.
Well, support in all areas here. Now, and he's just one of many people who've been up in that area to go fish. But of course, for the Alaska Native people, fishing is a part of the lifestyle. That's where they get the majority of their food. And subsistence fishing is really important to Alaska Native people. So talk a little bit about that in the story you covered and how the mine could potentially impact the subsistence fishing in that area.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I think, over the 20, 30 years that this mine has been proposed, there's been a lot of stories that focus on the fishing side of the mine debate, but not a lot of stories that kind of center the subsistence side. So it's more about sports fishing or commercial fishing, the kind that Donald Trump Jr. was tweeting about. Whereas subsistence fishing, which is what the Alaska Native people who live in the region do, it's a huge part of the culture. It's really, kind of the centerpiece of the culture, actually. And it's also a big part of the mixed economy there. The subsistence side is often kind of left as a footnote in these stories. And so I was really happy to write a story that was kind of centering the subsistence side of fishing in the Bristol Bay region. And I was able to talk to several different people who subsist in the region. And they were very adamant that they believed that this mine project would impact subsistence. And one thing they really wanted to highlight was that, in the Pebble Mine debate, there's a lot of emphasis on, could the mine put toxins into the water if things go wrong? But what they were trying to say is that even if everything goes according to plan, the mine doesn't have a big accident, it's the best case scenario, there still will be an impact. And that impact will come from, construction, new people in the area, and even just having the mine on the critical location. And they've already seen impacts from when there's just been mine explorations. And they also wanted to highlight that even though subsistence fishing is kind of the key element in the region, there's also caribou hunting, moose hunting, berry picking, and this too would be impacted by the mine. And so it was really great to talk with some people in the area who felt like, the people who made the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers hadn't really come to talk to them face to face, even though they did in the final environmental impact statement address that subsistence was such an important part of the culture there. So at least it's kind of outlined in that document. But but there was still kind of voices left unheard, they thought.
Interesting. So, and people can read your story on indiancountrytoday.com and learn more, and you'll continue following this issue as well as the statement comes out?
Yeah, so there will be another statement in around mid-August. So I think there's going to be a few more updates this summer. Everyone in Alaska is kind of nervously waiting to see what the next few steps will be.
All right. Well, Megan Sullivan, thank you for that update.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching. Take care of yourselves. Your life is precious. I'm Patty Tholohungva. Thanks for joining us.
Sometimes you got to take a stand just because you know you can. Oh, you got to run, you got to run. Standing
This is Indian Country Today.